Hello, welcome everyone to another community learning session. Today we are going to talk about containers and AWS CSS. So hope you all are doing well and you all are safe and healthy. So without further ado, let's start with the session. So as we have seen in the previous session, we talked about what is Docker, what are Docker containers, and a little bit basic about Dockers. We also went and looked into what are Docker images and what is Docker Hub and how we can pull the images, right? So let's just go for a quick recap of the introduction part about Docker. All right. So quickly, if you want to check your version, you can go for Docker version command. And as you can see, I'm running the latest version, which is 20.10. Now, for example, my Docker service is already started. So if I stop it and if I start it one more time, so this is the initial step that you have to do. We already looked into what is required to install Docker. So once you have installed Docker, this is the step you have to do. Just for a quick check, if everything is visible and audible, please can anyone put in the comments? Uh, anyone can you put in the comment if it is audible and visible? Okay, I feel so it is. All right. So I got a heads up. Yeah, it's thank you guys. Okay. So yeah, let's move forward. So this is the first initial step that you need to do is start the Docker service. So when you have started the Docker service, you can go ahead and use Docker. So we already looked into the Docker run command, the Docker run with the detached and interactive mode. So we looked into the Docker image and we used it to run our command, to run our container. And we know about this command, which is Docker PS. So now let us go for some more. So for example, the container, this is the container, this is the command that is in the background written in the Docker file, which is the HTTP foreground that is running the HTTPD service. So what are we getting for that service? So for example, if I want to check, we also saw, this is just a recap of the first session. So we also saw the exec command. Using the exec command, we can get inside the container. So for example, this is the container. I'm just going to copy it. And we can, once we get inside the container, we can check. For example, in this, we have the index.html file. So it shows the content, and we can also put our own content, right? We already went through this. So another few commands that are Docker basic commands I want to tell you about is, so for example, these are my running containers I can see with the Docker PS command. So for example, what about the containers that are not running? So what about the fact that if I want to see both the running containers and the stopped containers? So I have a command for that is Docker PS-a. So by chance I don't have any stop containers. I cleaned my system today. So just let me run another another and another container. So right, it will pull the image. So this image is being pulled from Docker Hub. We already saw what is Docker Hub, and it's a repository where Docker stores its images, and you can also upload your own image, and we already saw that how to do that. So once the download is complete, it'll extract, and then using this Docker image, we'll have our container running in just 1 second. So it's just not the container, it's like a provisioned OS that we are going to have completely at our disposal. We can use it the way we want to. Okay. So now, for example, I am inside this container. So let me just quickly exit it. And there is a command which is docker stop, and I just need to first get the name of the container that I launched. Sorry, it's Docker PS. So yeah, so as you can see that this is the container that is running right now. So yeah, so once we exited this container, it has stopped. So now if we go to the docker ps-a command, you can see the difference that docker ps only shows you the running container. So for example, this container is only running, so it will show you it is up 2 minutes. But this container, I logged in and I exited, so it has stopped. So you can see with the docker ps-a command that it also shows the list of stopped containers. So this is the difference between the two commands. It is very important to know docker ps and docker ps-a. Okay, so let us move forward. Now there are other few commands that we already saw. One is docker images, that shows us the list of images that we have installed or downloaded from the docker hub. Okay, so this is the command that will list the list of images. Then we already saw the docker exec command, using which we can get inside the container and work with it, right? So a few other commands are very important. For example, one of them is docker inspect. So if you want to know more about any container, you can use docker inspect. So let me quickly run another container, and let us name it cls web con. Okay, so this will not come here, this will be actually the name, right? And I'll use the httpd image with the latest tag. So once I run this, now for example, I want to check the IP address, and I want to check the internal configurations and everything. So there are two ways to do that. One is, you can use the docker exec command, then use the container name, right? And just use bash, and along with it you use the option -it, which is interactive and a terminal. When you use this, you will get inside the container. Now if I run ifconfig, if it is available, it is not, you can go ahead and download it. So let me okay, it may be ubuntu base os, so let me run apt install. Okay, oh sorry, it's not ifconfig, it is nettools. Okay, it is not available. Okay, no worries. Yeah, just understand this, that for example, I want to check the IP address. So I have to install a package. The package is actually nettools. I don't know what the package is in here, so let me quickly check if there is. Yeah, okay, no worries, just let us go with something else. So for example, I have to check the IP address, and then I have to come here, install a package, run ifconfig. There are other ways to see it. For example, IP is not here also. Okay, so okay, so few commands are not available, we just need to install the package, no worries. So you understand that we have to install the packages in here, right? So now we can do this, we can come inside the container and check the IP address or whatever it is. But we don't need to do that, because at times you don't want to come inside the container because it might break something. All right, so what we can do for that, there is a command already, which is docker inspect. It will help us. Okay, so it is okay, it's cls webcon. Yeah, so it'll give you all the internal configuration list. You can see this long list, so you don't have to go inside the container to do anything, starting from the id, the created timestamp, the path, argument states, and you can also see the image and every other thing that you need. You can go ahead and also check that we have here the mounts. We'll shortly look into docker volumes, where we'll go into the mount part, and you can see that it has everything that you need. The expose ports, as it is a web server, it is running on the port 80 with the tcp protocol, under the tcp protocol, and the command that is running, it is http foreground, and the image used. Then you can see the network settings. You can also see the IP address here, right? So you don't need to go inside the Docker container, install packages. For example, in my case, maybe the package name is different, right? So we don't need to figure out what the package name is. We don't need to troubleshoot and find out how to check the IP config, anything like that. We can just come here, run the inspect command, and we'll have all the detailed configurations and all the detailed parameters about the container, right? So this is one of the commands which is very important, is docker inspect. Okay, next we can go for another command, which is docker logs. So if you want to check the logs of the container, docker logs is one of the most important commands, and it will help us in there, right? So not much log is generated. We have just started the service, and we have, you can see that it has started with this command http-d foreground, and it is running with the process ID of 1. So these are the logs that you can generate, and you can see the generated logs using the logs command. All right, so these are the basic commands that we need to know about. So till here, if you have any questions, please put them on the link section, or sorry, on the comment section. We will definitely go through them in the end. Okay, so now let us proceed forward. So you learned about the basic docker commands. Now what you need to do is, for example, there are some use cases you need to see. So let us look at that use case. Okay, so let me run another container by the name of uh, webcon2, and let's use the httpd image, and let's just launch it. Okay, sorry, this is actually not it. We need to go for the detached, right, and launch it. Okay, so when it is launched, you can go ahead and check the IP address, for example, with the inspect command. Okay, the IP address is 17.0.4. Okay, let me just copy it, and let me quickly paste it and run it. Now I'll tell you what we are doing here. Okay, so we have just created a container, and we have retrieved the IP address, and we have opened, Firefox with this IP address, and we are just trying to run it. So you can see that we can get this data, right? It works. Okay, so let me quickly stop share the VM screen, and let me take you to my another new screen in here, so you'll get the difference. Okay, so let me just quickly go to a new tab. Right, so now if I use the same IP that I used there, which is 172.17.0.4, it is the container IP, right? So if I run it here, you'll see that it will not run. Why it will not run? Because let me just quickly switch to my VM screen one more time. Right, so it is working here. Why? And it is not working in my base OS? There is a reason for that. So when Docker was created, the developers of Docker have created the security in such a way that when a container, so I'm running the container on top of my Red Hat OS, which is the Docker host. So wherever you're running the Docker engine, it is known as the Docker host. So I can fetch, or I can, retrieve the data, or I can access the website, or access the container from my Docker host and from other containers. So the scope of this Docker container is, for security reason, is the other containers and the Docker host. So if I want to go beyond that scope, for example, beyond is my web OS, base OS. So when I am going to access the website, the container from my base OS, it will not allow me to do so due to security reasons. So this is internal, you can say, internal measure taken by the Docker team, so that our container is not exposed. So if everyone can connect, there will be major security flaws. If, for example, if you don't want them to connect and they can connect, there can be major security flaws, right? So that is why this is the internal security feature. So how can we overcome this? So let us look into that now. Right, so now let us look into how can we overcome this. So there is a concept which is known as PAT. If you don't know, it's port address translation. So what we are going to do right now, we are going to run, let me name it CLS webcon 4, and yeah, so now what we are going to do is we are going to pat it. So the option for that is port address translation. I'm going to quickly tell you what pat is. So pat is basically, we are binding both the ports, the container port and my Docker host port. So what is going to happen right now is, for example, let us give any random port number. So now this port number, this is the Docker host port. So for example, this is the Red Hat OS port. Okay, And this cannot be random. Why it cannot be random? Because let me quickly show you. There is a command in Linux to check your used or active ports, right? So in here you can see my port 8080 is active, 80 is active, 111, 631, all these ports are active, right? So now I cannot go ahead and mention the same ports. If, for example, let me show you what will happen. So if I go ahead and mention the 8080 port that is being used in my Docker host, okay, and I want to port it to the container port that is 80. So my HTTP image has exposed the 80 port, so I'm going to use the container port which is 80, right? So now once I go ahead and use the HTTP image, I'll get an error. So let me use the DIT option as well. I'll get an error. So what this error will say is that the driver failed because of external connectivity on endpoint. So CLS webcon for this container is trying to use your 8080 address, 8080 port, and trying to bind to it, but the address is already in use. Okay, so this is the reason. If you have any port already active and running in your base OS, we cannot reuse that port. So in this scenario, we have to go for some port. So with this command, we can check which port is not running. We'll quickly go and assign some port. It can be a random port, right? We'll just go for 1234. Now once we run this, we have used the same name, so let us give a different name. So now once we run this, it will run fine because we are using a Docker host port which is not active and we are binding it to a container port. Now let us see the difference. Now let me quickly go ahead and inspect this container and let us get the IP address. So it's 17.0.5. So let me quickly check again from here. So when we used last time also, it was accessed from here, right? So we can see with the Firefox command that it can be accessed from my Docker host. So no challenge in that. Just a quick check we want to do. Yeah, it's working fine, right? Now, what will happen that if I again use this container IP and go to my base OS and run this, will it run? No, it will not run. Why it will not run? Let me quickly check it one more time. So let me stop the share and I'll share one of my tabs one more time. Okay, so the address would be 05, and once we run this, it will not run again. Why it will not run? Because this is a container private IP address, and I am basically kind of like coming to access this private IP of the container, but it will not allow me to do so because the security measures of Docker says that only Docker host and only the other containers can use this private IP. No one else can. So what we did in this aspect, what we did was, just let me switch to the VM. In this aspect, what we did was we patted our container with the host Docker host port. Okay, so we use this command and we patted our container, right? So now the fun fact is that we don't need to come to the Docker container IP. We can come to the Docker host IP and use this port number. So we can check, like, come to directly to Docker host IP. So you can check with the ifconfig command that the Docker host IP is this. Let me quickly copy this. And when we go ahead and do it one more time, that I will use the Docker host IP, and I would use the Docker host port that I have used for the pat. You will see that it will work, right? Because I have patted it with the Docker host IP, and now I can easily come to this Docker host IP and use it because it is already running. This service is already running and it is binded with the Docker host port. So this port is active. So whenever I send some retrieval packets, or I send some I want to access this website, right? So whenever this port receives that incoming packets, then it can provide the data, that is the destined data, right? Because we have binded this port. Okay, So this was one of the other major, you can say, one of the concepts of Docker. There are a few more other concepts that we'll quickly go through. So till now, if you have any questions, please post them in the chat section. Okay, I feel we are good to go. Okay, so the next concept would be Docker volumes. All right. So uh, there can be a use case. What is the use case? That, for example, I run another container, and let me name it. And we, in this scenario, we have used the HTTPD image. Okay. So, sorry, this will run in error. Okay. Right. So the issue with this is, if we only run this container and we don't attach any volume to it, so in that scenario, what can happen is, just let me quickly exec to that container. Seven, I believe, and yeah, and let me go to the document root, and there is a file in here which says it works. Well, let us quickly change this file. Okay. And let us change this to, for example, this is my content. This can be anything. If you're a web developer, this can be anything, right? But for now, consider this as my website, or this is my content. Okay. So what will happen right now is, if, for example, I quickly exit it, and let me run the inspect command, and this was the 7. Okay, so let me copy this, and let me quickly run it with Firefox. Okay. So now what happens is that I can get my content. We saw that, with this, we can get our content, whatever we have written. And in this scenario, we have mentioned it as my content. Okay. So now clients are coming into my website or my web page, and they can access this content. No worries. But what will happen if, just let me switch this to this side. Right. So what will happen is, if by chance my container goes down, so let me just stop it, and this stop, just consider it as my container going down. Okay. So my container has stopped working, and there is some issue. So now when I refresh it, it will not show me this content. It will show that your website is down, or whatever, your application is not up. Okay. So in this scenario, what we have to do, we have to go ahead, launch a new container with this command. Then we have to, with this command, then you have to go inside, change the content. There is a lot of process in that. We cannot go for that. So in this scenario, there is a concept that has been provided by Docker, which is Docker volume, in which we can mount the volume. So let me quickly tell you in the process of what is it. So let me name it as mount volume. Okay. So we have created a directory. A directory is like a folder, and we are going to mount this volume. Okay. So let me run another container, and let me name it. I'll explain you in the process what I'm doing. Okay. So just now, let us go ahead and mount it. Right. If you don't understand right now itself, I'll explain it, what this mount process is. So the document root for this is usr local apache 2 htdocs. Okay. And yeah, what we just need to mention the Docker image. Okay. So now what we have done is, we have mounted this volume, the mount volume. Okay. So what will happen now is that whatever I put in this directory, so let me go ahead and switch to this directory. So there is nothing in it, but let us quickly go ahead and create a index.html file, and whatever content I'll put in it, it will directly go to the container, because the volumes are now binded. Okay. So let me just write something as volume mount successful, and let me close it. Okay, so now if we go ahead and inspect the IP of this container, it's 06. So let me quickly go ahead and refresh this page. You can see that I get the same data. Now what is the use case of this? What is the benefit of this? So now, for example, let us do the same thing that we did that time. Let us stop the container which is running this content, or which is rendering this website. So it will be webcon 8. Okay, so once I stop this container and I refresh it, it will again show me this error. My website is down. Now my admin, or the guy who is in charge of site reliability, or who is in charge of replicating this part, or putting this application up, so he will just quickly go ahead and within seconds he'll run this command. He will not launch a Docker container and exec into it. He will just launch a Docker container, and along with launching a Docker container, let me just name it this webcon 9, and along with launching the Docker container, he will just mount the same volume that we used last time, right? The last volume which we used was mount vol, and we'll mount it to usr local apache 2 htdocs, and I'll use the same image, right? So when I run this, now within seconds I run this container, I refresh my website or web page, it is up. So this is the main benefit, that I don't need to go ahead and find my data. So this is the data that I use for the last website. This is my code. Okay, so I don't need to go and fetch my code from somewhere, then exec into the container, copy the code. I'll just mount the volume, I'll place the code in one directory, I'll mount that volume to my container document directory, and if the container goes down, I'll just mount another container with that same volume, and it will be up instantaneously. Okay, so these are the use cases of Docker volume. Okay, so just a quick recap. We went through all the Docker basic commands. We went through Docker logs, Docker exec, we went through Docker inspect for troubleshooting, and Docker host port, and sorry, Docker volume mount, and Docker patting. Okay, so these are the basic knowledge you require, and this is are not basic. You can use this in a more advanced way. You can create networks of your own, and you can implement this. But this is enough for us to move into AWS ECS now. So now let us look at few resources that I would like to provide you with, so that you can practice this on your own. So let me quickly switch to the just let me quickly share my screen one more time. Okay, so I'll share a link with you all that will help you in practicing this by yourself. So actually it is provided in the description. So if you could quickly go to the description, in here you can see that Docker practice labs. Let me just quickly copy it, and let me just use it. All right, so yeah, I'll share my screen one more time. Yeah, so this is by a company called known as Code Cloud. So you can just log into enroll, and in here just use your Google account, whatever you have to enroll, and to log in. And once you log in, you can directly go ahead and let me use this one more time. So yeah, and Docker Labs, right? So once you're in this, it's absolutely free of cost. You can go ahead and enroll, and once you enroll into it, you can start the course. It is I feel a 7-chapter or 8-chapter course, and you'll start from basic Docker commands, which we run, Docker run commands, Docker images, environmental variables. We did not look through environmental variables, but yeah, you can look at it in here. Commands and entry point, Docker compose. So there are a few other things that we did not cover, like Docker compose. We looked into Docker storage and Docker networking, but yeah, entry point commands, we looked into it very basic. So if you are interested to know more about Dockerfile, Docker networking, Docker environmental variables. So please put in the comments, or please reach out to us through the feedback that you want something like this. So we'll definitely create that content next week. All right. So you can just go through this. So it's basic and simple. When you open this, you start the lab, and once you start the lab, you can see on the left hand side you'll get an environment where you can practice all of this code, and on the right hand side you'll get a quiz. So it's very fun and interactive, and you can learn while having a lot of fun with this. So it is provided in the description, so go ahead and check this out. It's super fun. All right, so you'll get all the instructions and everything to do here. Okay, so yeah, as of now, if you have any more questions, you can put them in the chat, or else we'll go forward with our discussion. Okay, so let us proceed. So now we are quickly go, and we will shift to the ECS, right? So now we learned about what is Docker. We learned about what are containers. Now Amazon, AWS has their own container service, which is known as the Elastic Container Service. Okay, so you can use this to deploy your containerized images and your application absolutely hassle free. You don't need to go through the Docker run, Docker commands, nothing like that. It's just plain and simple, and we'll go through right now how to do that. So let's just we need to come to this portal. Once you're in this portal, just go for get started, and in here you can see the diagram which says container definition, task definition, service, and cluster. In here, the container definition basically says the name, the image. We know what a Docker image is, the memory and the CPU you want to allocate. So let's just go first with the sample app, and we'll look into the custom in few minutes. Okay, and the task definition is defined. Now, one of the most important thing in here is that there are two ways to launch your ECS cluster, right? There are two ways to launch your ECS cluster. One is using Fargate. So you can see in here it's mentioned Fargate. So Fargate is more the easy way, and you can see the more reliable way, because using Fargate is serverless. So you don't need to take care of the instances, you don't need to take care of the patching, you don't need to take care of the OS updates, nothing like that. AWS will take care of all of this. Okay, so there's another way where you can use your own EC2 instances, and then in that case you need to manage those EC2 instances. So there are two ways to launch a ECS cluster. One is using Fargate, which is serverless, and another is using EC2. Okay, so yeah, let me quickly share with you one more thing that we want to you all to know, because this is one of the major thing that is going to happen in the coming days, and I want all of you to be aware of it, right? So give me a quick minute, and let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so okay, so as you can see, this is a special moment for all of us at AWS Cloud Community LPU, and all of our members who has been with us from the starting, and who has been with us through all the community learning sessions. We are trying to bring more content for you. We are trying to bring the elite and the most elite people. So we have an event upcoming, which is a collaboration with AWS User Group Jaipur, and it is a very big community, and we are very much excited for this collaboration. And they have collaborated with the AWS Cloud Community LPU to launch a mega event, which is serverless in full stack development, right? We are going completely serverless. There is no need to know the internal, you don't need to manage anything internal. Everything is going to be serverless, and we will look into it by one of the most elitist speaker, which is Mr. Shumon Debnath. He is a senior developer advocate on Amazon Web Services, right? So it's on 29th of May. So mark your calendar. It's going to be 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. There are various opportunities for you, and gifts, prizes. You have one-on-one interaction. So it is going to be a mega event, right? And we are trying to create events like this so we can spread this to you all, and you all can come and learn from it. So this is pure contribution, right? We are trying to take more AWS enthusiasts and share with you all that how you can improve your career. So this is going to be one of the milestone events in our journey, as well as we want it to be a milestone event in your journey. So please be present on this time and experience one of the great events by AWS User Group Jaipur and AWS Cloud Community LPU, right? So I hope you all are excited for this, and we are sure are, because this is one of the biggest events that we are trying to bring down to bridge the gap between industry and the students. So whatever questions you have, like how to build your career, how to get a chance to go into AWS, and how to start our career in that path in the cloud profile, so you'll get all your answers, right? Okay, so let's continue with our Amazon ECS journey right now. Okay, so now let us, once you have decided the container definition and task definition, let us proceed to the next part. In the next part, we don't need to do much. It is already set by default. There is one part we can actually go ahead with, which is load balancer type. If you want your container to be behind a load balancer, and you want multiple containers running like this, multiple tasks running, so you can go ahead and use a ALB. But as of now, we don't require a load balancer, so we are not going with a load balancer. Okay, so in here you just need to provide a cluster name, so we'll use it CLS, which is community learning session web cluster, and everything is by default. The VPC ID, the subnets are by default. Okay, and okay, we are using the sample app, right? And we'll just go for create. So it will take 1 or 2 minutes. It will quickly go ahead and do all this service. Like the ECS resource creation includes the cluster creation, the task definition, that what task you want to run, the service, so that this task is available to the outside world, and the other, like the log group, and also creates an internal cloud formation stack to deploy this task, a VPC subnet, and security group. So all of this is done by automatically. You don't need to go ahead and do any of this. So this is the power of Amazon ECS using Fargate, right? You don't need to go ahead and do all of this. It is done automatically by AWS. Okay, so till it is running, if you have any questions, please put them on the YouTube chat, so we can address some if you have any questions, right? So it'll take just 1 or 2 minutes to deploy, and once it is deployed, we'll go ahead. Okay, so it has deployed. Now let us go ahead, quickly check the service, and here you'll get all of the details about this service, which is the cluster, the task definition, the service type, and the launch type, which is Fargate, and all other. So our desired count was 1, and it is pending. So you can go ahead and check in tasks. It is still pending because they need to download the image and then run the task on it. But you can see that now it is running. So if we quickly go and check this task, so it will show you the cluster this task is running on, the launch type of this task, and you can also go ahead and check the task definition. Okay, and this task definition will show you the details about this task. So let me quickly switch that. Yeah, we have been using this parameters with this task memory, task CPU, and everything for this task. Then what we can, our main purpose would be to check our task, what it is running. So we'll just go to network, fetch the public IP, and let me quickly show you and switch the screen. Okay, so let me quickly switch the screen to where I can show you our deployed app. Right. So as you can see, it's visible. it's a basic dummy web app created by ECS. So you can have your own content. We'll quickly look into it how. So it's Amazon ECS sample app. Congratulations, your application is now running on a container in Amazon ECS. Okay, so this means that we have successfully launched our own containerized application, not our own, but a default one. But we have successfully launched a containerized application in ECS. Okay, so now the question is, what happens when you have your own requirements and you want your own application, web application to launch as a containerized application in ECS? So for that, we will quickly go through. For that, let me switch the screen back. Okay, yeah. So yeah, so for that, what we need to do is, instead of going for a sample or a default image, we need to go for our own custom image. Okay, so now in this container name, let us give CLS webcon and the image. Now this is important. So we discussed about what is Docker Hub. Docker Hub is an official repository where you can upload your own Docker images. So what those Docker images consist of? Those Docker images consist of your own code, your own application, your whatever website you have. If you want to Dockerize it, and you can upload it in Docker Hub, right? So accordingly, we can fetch that image from Docker Hub. So I'll just quickly show you. I have my own account and I have uploaded few images on Docker Hub, and I'll quickly show you the process that what I'm talking about. Okay, so let me quickly switch to Docker Hub. I'm sorry for this hassle of switching tabs and windows. Actually, yeah, because for your smooth experience, I'm not sharing my entire screen. Okay, so yeah. So now if you quickly go to Docker Hub, in here, I have my own account. You can have your own account. We already discussed this, how we can do that. And we already pushed an image in the last session. So I have multiple images here. So one of the images is a web image, and my account name is Submarine. So I will just, use this as my repository URL. So I'll just copy this. And there are certain versions I've uploaded. The latest is version 6, which I uploaded a few hours ago. Okay, so now comes the question that you have your own application. What is the first step? The first step is that you need to Dockerize it. Means you need to put that application into a container, and for that you can take the help of Dockerfile. So now if you guys want to know more about Dockerfile, you want to know more about how to Dockerize your own application, so you can write in the comments or in the video comments that you want a video like that. We will create a video like that soon. Okay, for now, if you want to know what the code I have used for this Dockerfile creation, for this Docker image creation, you can quickly go to our GitHub link in the repository, in the description, YouTube description, and you can go to that repo and check out the code. Okay, so this is the image that we are going to use, and I have already copied it, and this is the version I'm going to use. Okay, so let me just stop share and let me go to the part where we are deploying our Amazon ECS application. Okay, yeah. All right, so one moment, sorry, I shared the wrong tab. Yeah, it's here. Share, right. So now what we need to provide is, we need to provide the repository and the image and the tag. So we already looked at that. My repository is Submarine, and I am going to use an image that I pushed few hours back with the latest version 6. Okay, so now the memory limits can be whatever you said, but the minimum is 512, which is required to run Fargate. Okay, so yeah, maybe it is provided here. ECS recommends 300 to 500 MIB as a starting point for web application. Okay, so this is good to go, 512. Port mapping is that you need to mention the container port that you have exposed in your image. So this can be different for different images and different use cases you are using the image for, and we need to mention that port. So I'll mention the port 80 because I have exposed the 80 port in my image. Okay, so now I'll just quickly go to update. There is nothing you need to do in the advanced container configuration. We can go for this at a more professional level. But as of now, for our understanding, this is good to go. Then we'll go for the update. Now we have chose this image, which is my own repository, my own image, my own custom image. I've provided my own memory limit, and yeah, we'll just go with the image. Okay. So now we just need to go to next. Once the container definition, task definition is defined, we just need to go for the servers. We don't need load balancer. We'll go for next, and we will define the name of the cluster. So it is AWS CCLPU CLS cluster. Okay, and we'll go for next. Once you review this, whatever you have done, you'll just go for create. And in this section, it will take 1 or 2 more minutes to create this application of yours, container application of yours, right? So meanwhile, if you have any question, a video would be really helpful. Pratik, which video are you referring to? Can you please tell me, like, what kind of video, the creation of the ECS, or what kind of video? Can you please, if you could mention, please? If you have any more questions, please put them on the chat. Yeah, it'll take 1 or 2 more minutes. Yeah, Pratik, if you could mention that which video are you referring to, on which topic, it would be clear so that I can answer your question. All right. Okay. So now that we have deployed this application, or sorry, we have deployed this cluster. Now we'll just quickly go to the service, and same as before, we'll go to the tasks. And in the task, you can see that it is still pending because it is pulling my Docker image. We already saw that what Docker pull does. So let me quickly refresh this. It is running now. Let me just quickly go to task, and in here we'll go for the public IP, and I'll just access it, right? So let me quickly switch my screen. I feel it's not visible. Right. So this is the website, or this is the web page, or this is the application that we have. And you can have your own website, you can have your own web page, and you can create your own Docker image, and you can push it into Docker Hub, and use that in ECS, and configure it manually as per your requirements. And with Fargate, the internal, you don't need to manage. AWS will manage it completely. So this is how you can do this. And as of now, if you have any questions regarding this process, so I hope you enjoyed this process. It's a lot of the things that you have to do manually, what we saw in Docker images. You don't need to do any of that regarding the Docker run commands, the Docker, the all the other things that you need to do manually to set up, right? You don't need to do anything. You just come to ECS, tell your Docker image, and your task, and whatever you have to do, you just use it, and you can deploy your own website using ECS, right? A containerized website or containerized application. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this, guys. If you have any more questions, you can put them, and if you want more videos like this, you can always share with us through all our presence, through all our social media handles. So I'll quickly share the link tree. Okay, and in this link tree also, you will get the May 29 mega event, serverless in full stack development, that I mentioned about. So quickly go ahead and check this link tree. In that, you will get that, and quickly register for it, because these are the opportunities that you cannot miss. If you want to stay in the cloud domain, you need to know what is happening. You need to stay at par, and you need to keep upgrading yourself. So these are the opportunities, then you need to grab it. All right, so this is it for today. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you want more topics on containers, Dockers, you can comment on the video, or you can reach out to us. So next we'll move further on the DevOps field more, and we'll cover one of the other tools. So now we learned about what are containers. So on the next session, that is next Sunday, we will talk about what is container orchestration, and we will look into a tool which is a huge in demand tool and used everywhere in the industry, which is Kubernetes. And we'll also look into the managed service of AWS, which is EKS, the Elastic Kubernetes Service. So these are the topics for the upcoming sessions. If you have any use case you want us to look into for these topics, please let us know. Right. So everyone, thank you for attending this webinar, this community learning session. So we will continue providing updated content, and we will continue providing all the content required for you that you can use and use it for jobs, for your CV, build projects on it, and for your knowledge. So thank you, and have a great day, and be safe. Love and happiness to all of you from AWS Cloud Community LPU. Thank you. Cheers.